Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Shaksurum
Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah
Shri
Shri
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Manobishtam
Manobishtam
Sthapitam Yena
Sthapitam Jena
Bhutale
Bhutale
Swayam
Swayam
Rupa
Rupa
Kadamahiram
Kadamaham Dadati Swapadantikam
Vandeham
Vandeham
Shri Guru
Shri
Suyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahganaragunatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakham Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavanishvare Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikpada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidvanto Dita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishna Namastume Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Mam Mahadana Mam Nishtaraka Madhvagya Madananda Namastute Asadu Sadhu Tadayim Ati Nicho Chatakara Hana Muncha Kadachimam Premna Hritkanta Yospura Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so you have some homework, right, for today. If you are, what I'm going to do, I'm going to split you into separate rooms, okay? And then you can do a little bit of sharing. And in each of those groups, you can select a representative, maybe, and then maybe we can do a little bit of sharing. Okay, so let's assign the groups. How many people? We have 23, so if we put like 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 4 people. Okay. So we have 4 people in each group, maybe 5. So I'm gonna give you like 10 minutes, okay? So you do a little bit of sharing and then maybe get the main points. I think even less than 10 minutes is enough, like 8 minutes is fine. If you already have you done the homework? Did you do the homework yourselves? Samuel, did you do your homework? Yes. Samuel is on the other side. You are too early and Jamastami is too late. You're still, have you woken up yet, Samuel? Yeah. What is the time there?
Yeah, I go to bed early that's 3:30.
Okay, that's good.
It's okay.
Nice. It's the best time for studying Bhagavatam. I mean, really the best time.
That's true.
It's the best time, undoubtedly. I sometimes It's just because it's a japa time, but to me, for me, it's just, I can do in 1 hour at that time where it takes me 3 any other time, because the mind is so peaceful. So you're fortunate. Okay, so what to do is, if you have done the homework, I'm gonna just give you 8 minutes. And the idea here is that you can take points from each other, take notes, you learn from each other, and then we'll do a little bit of sharing. I don't want to spend a lot of time, because we did actually spend quite a bit of time on these verses, more than usual, I must say. And and we need to cover the chapter 3 today. So just get the points, write them down, choose a person, and I'll call you back. Okay? So you remember what it is. Oops, open our rooms. Okay, so it's happening. You're getting a message to join the rooms, right? Yeah. Rupa Goswami, somehow it's usually you who is with the noise, background noise, so try to be a little extra careful. Okay, so who would like to volunteer to share? Do some sharing quickly. Anyone from any group? Any person would like to share some points?
Can we go ahead? Group?
Yeah, please. Srinarayan Prabhu.
Thank you so much. So our group, what we just thought, all the devotees shared each of their preaching part and then the realization in which they will apply on the particular sloka. So they brought out very nicely. So how we are trying to present it is from the sloka number 6 onwards, we see it as like a flow of understanding, where when we go and preach, what is this value of human life, number 1. So we have to understand and give the understanding of the value of the human life.
May I stop you for a second?
Yes.
The purpose of this is you give me a principle, okay? And then you don't need to explain it to me. You just give me the principle. Like there is a guideline, right? So what is the guideline for preaching application? It's like a statement. For personal application, it's a statement. I'm not looking for a commentary here. I'm looking for the sutra. For example, life is meant for inquire about the absolute truth, just as a sutra. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the guideline. Then if you will be to write the essay, you'll have to explain it and elaborate upon it. Okay? It's right. But we don't have time for that now. I just want you to get me the guidelines. So what guidelines did you get?
Okay. Our guideline is to what is the most important occupation for all the humanity? What is the most important occupation of the entire humanity?
That's not a guideline. That's a question.
So I'm just saying the most important occupation of the entire humanity is to get into the loving service, devotion service of the Supreme Lord.
Okay, so that's backed up by which verse?
By sloka number 6.
Okay. Yep. That's a point. Okay. The supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which all men can attain to loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to satisfy. Actually, many of these verses are by themselves the guidelines. You don't even need to change anything, right? They are all, but you can also extract the principle. If you extract the principle and you put it on your own words, it's highly possible that you're going to absorb it better, you're going to assimilate it better. But some of these verses are so beautiful. I was encouraging the devotees to memorize the chapter, because it's really nicely done. I mean, really nicely. The way that the devotees edited the books and put them, it's such a flow, So, all glories to Prabhupada and his team. Yeah. So, okay. So that's one point. Let's hear more points. Meanwhile, you can all write on the chat box also. You can write points. I want like a brainstorm, lots of points here, because it's loaded. This is so many points in these verses. So you can also type. Anything else from your group, Srinarayan?
So after, when we start working on our supreme occupation, we get a lot of knowledge and also moving away from the material world.
Again, I insist. I'm looking for a guideline. You just give it to me.
What is the guideline?
Guideline is when you perform devotion service, you get a lot of transcendental knowledge and moving away from the material world.
Okay, good. Someone else or you know, okay. Anyone would like to unmute themselves and share some points?
So in group 4, Prabhu, with reference to verse 14 and 15, the guideline that came out is read, hear, and share. Because we need to be with one pointed attention, constantly keep hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay, nice. So it's nice when you bring it back to a particular verse, like, you know, that one, that, you know, anyway, that verse is eluding me right now. With one single pointed attention, which once you constantly hear about, remember, worship, and glorify the Supreme Lord, who is the protector of the devotees, you know. So that's nice. Okay, something else? Someone else? Or you can tell us another one. Bhakti Prabhu. Nothing else? Vamsidhar?
No, Prabhu, that was the only point which we discussed.
Only one point. Come on, I'm very disappointed. I must say, come on, that's, you know, only 1 point in 10 minutes.
Okay,
Really?
Prabhu, can I share, Prabhu?
Okay, Patita Taran.
Right. No, because we also the same group, but okay, we discussed on point text 14, 15, 18, and 20. So in the form of sutra, with 1 point attention, cut the knot of karma by serving the person of personality and personality to achieve liberation.
Okay.
So it's from text.
Yeah,
14.
fine. Another one.
That's all. Just like
So,
sutra from
okay, we're getting somewhere. Come on, Archana Bhakti Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, from the group 5, and we have to select guidelines for personal application. So verse 14, Ekena Manasa, and the personal application is that we have to stick to topics of Krishna Katha, and we rather than indulging in any other topics. And from verse 16, Punya Tirtha Nishevanat, that is developing the mood of a servant to serve the devotees, and of course all others also. And verse 18, Nashta Prayeshu
So
Abhadreshu.
if we want to make it complete, right? Like you can say, well, we want to serve the devotees. Why? Because we want to cultivate a taste for hearing and chanting. Okay? So it's just like,
Yes,
so the why, if you put the why there, is also good. Like,
Yes,
you know, we have to, you know, we have to constantly hear and engage in activities. Why? Because the ultimate, you know, objective of all our activities is to please the Supreme Lord, you know.
Yes,
So then it's all complete, you know. And then that's what I was saying, that some of these preaching guidelines, personal application guidelines, they are also relevant for preaching. You know, that this is our message, and it's how you present it. You know, if we will have more time, we would do like a, you know, an exercise here that, okay, how to present it. But at least we get in the guidelines. Give us another one.
and
I lost you. Is that my internet or her internet? Can you hear me?
Her internet, Prabhu.
Okay, so maybe Shama Bhakti, tell us some point.
Yeah, so Prabhu, we also discussed how life desire should never be for sense gratification. It should always be inquiry about the absolute truth.
Yeah,
And
that's like a major one. And this is like, it's revolutionary. That point is revolutionary. It's totally, you know, like the whole society is moving in an opposite direction, you know. And for us as devotees and followers of Srila Prabhupada, this was also revolutionary. It turns our lives upside down, basically. For the better, of course, you know. Life, you know, human life is not meant for sense gratification. Human life is meant for the higher endeavor of self-realization. Okay.
Okay, and the next one was also that all our occupational material activity they are useless labor. If we are not doing anything spiritual with our life, it's just a like a burden on the back of a donkey. So it's just useless labor.
Nice. Okay, very good. Thank you. Prema Manjari.
We also focus on the first set of verses. So first, pure bhakti gives highest satisfaction. And second is occupational work is not meant for material gain, but for pleasure of the Lord. And then the third one, so therefore we should work only for simple living and saving time for spiritual advancement. And another one was also, there is no need to go to solitude to gain knowledge and detachment, because bhakti, trying to get bhakti gives this too, both knowledge and detachment.
Nice, very good. That's it, you got it. That's the point, that's the objective of the exercise. I'm going to read a few that haven't been mentioned, maybe from here. It says, goal of material life is to become attracted to Krishna. Yeah. You know, occupational engagement that we've already been mentioned, the highest perfection. The highest perfection for human life is to please the Lord. Purpose of Vanasham is to please the Lord. In order to gain knowledge, we have to hear from the right sources. Yeah. The real inquiry should be the inquiry about the absolute truth. And with the sword of knowledge, we can cut. Yeah. Okay, so these are all valid points. I just shared a few from my own, let's see what I have here. I mean, you can derive so many. The whole essence is here. Huh? And you mentioned Sab, like verse 6, verse 7. Anything which is not connecting with the Supreme Lord is useless. You mentioned this. Simple living, high thinking. You mentioned that as well. Now, Bhakti Sutta Grihitaya. This is a point for personal application. Like devotional service must go parallel with hearing about Krishna. So it's very, very important that, you know, my experience, what I've noticed is that those devotees who have been in the movement for many years and they have endured all the different tests, they all read Prabhupada's books and they study regularly. You know, it is a must. So it should always be a balance. You know, sometimes when we join the temple, we stop reading Prabhupada's books because it's so much service to do. You know, and sometimes, you know, if you're outside the temple, maybe that you're working or doing so many things, but there must be a balance. And the one way to do it is that you have to schedule some time for reading, some time for nourishing yourself. And doing courses like this particularly is really effective for that purpose, you know. Okay, so they have both, they need to go on parallel lines, not just one without the other. Also that we only read and we study, but we don't do any service. Also not so good. Okay, the highest perfection is to please the Lord. You mentioned that one by serving the devotees. One gains affinity. I completed that one from someone else. Now the Lord helps from within the heart. Those devotees who have an interest to hear, that's another one. I mean, from the second section, we didn't hear so many. These are some of them. Basically, it's just the verses, you know, like regular attendance plus regular service. All anxiety is almost destroyed, you know. And when devotional service is established in the heart, one becomes happy. And in that state, one becomes free from all misgivings and one gains scientific knowledge of the Lord. Okay. So now we're moving on with following verses, with verse 23, I believe, right? So now the next section, what's coming now for the following verses is that now who is the object of worship? Whom should we worship basically? Because okay, we mentioned about bhakti, yeah, but maybe there is a confusion about who is the object of worship, and there are also other personalities, like in the case now we're going to hear about worship of Vishnu, worship of Brahma, worship of Shiva, worship of the demigods. So basically this is what is going to be established now, is that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the ultimate object of worship, and he is also known as Vasudev, and we should worship him. So text 23, the transcendental personality of Godhead is indirectly associated with the three modes of material nature, namely passion, goodness, and ignorance. And just for the material worlds, creation, maintenance, and destruction, he accepts the three qualitative forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Of these three, all human beings can derive ultimate benefit from Vishnu, the form of the quality of goodness. Okay? So we have discussed this extensively in Bhakti Shastri in regards to the different types of worship, right? And as I was telling you before, that many of the concepts that are explained in Bhagavad Gita, we're going to see them, they're going to be explained in great depth in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses, it's very concise. So the idea here is that what is the ultimate benefit? The ultimate benefit is actually not just liberation, but the ultimate benefit is developing a relationship with Krishna, which is eternal and which is going to satisfy the soul. And that can only be done, Krishna can only be conquered by bhakti to him, basically, or to the devotees. Higher than worship of the Lord is worship of the devotees. We established that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just read the verses, and then we'll make a few comments. 24. Firewood is a transformation of earth, but smoke. Now, Sutta Goswami is using an analogy to explain how we can, why we can derive higher benefit from the worship of Vishnu. So firewood is a transformation of earth, but smoke is better than the raw wood. And fire is still better, for by fire we can derive the benefits of superior knowledge through Vedic sacrifices. Similarly, passion, rajas, is better than ignorance, tamas. But goodness, sattva, is best, because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth. So we spoke about this on the beginning of the unit, about the importance of cultivating the mode of goodness. And Prabhupada in the purport is elaborating on this point. Text 25. Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the personality of Godhead due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. They worship him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. Those who are serious about liberation are certainly non-envious, and they respect all. Yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods and worship only the all-blissful forms of Lord Vishnu and his plenary portions. 27. Those who are in the most of passion and ignorance worship the forefathers and other living beings and the demigods who are in charge of cosmic activities, for they are urged by a desire to be materially benefited with women, wealth, power, and progeny. So later on in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, Krishna is going to say that actually there are so many different types of worship and, types of faith also. And this is determined by to accommodate the different types of desire of the living entity in the material world. People are attracted to different forms of worship. So people who are in the mode of passion, in the mode of ignorance, they may be more attracted to worship of Brahma and Shiva than they may be attracted to the worship of Vishnu. But ultimately, we can not derive the ultimate benefit, which is eternal benefit. It comes from Krishna himself. Demigods can only grant you temporary benefits because they themselves, they are not eternal. You know, like Brahma, even Brahma, he has a, you know, he has a, you know, a limited time in this world, even though it may appear to be like very, very long, but he still has to die. And Lord Shiva himself, you know, he's known as Ashutosh, so he may grant material benefits very easily, but you know, generally worshippers of Lord Shiva, they approach him for that, for material benefits. They are not coming, they are not approaching him as a devotee of the Lord, who may give them, you know, bhakti as well, you know. That's not, people who worship Shiva don't approach him as a servant of Krishna. They worship as they worship him as a you know, separate personality, and that's not recommended also in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So this is from the purport. Someone could read.
Worshipping the demontic demigods for material gain is practically a prerequisite of religion. This sort of religious activity has been condemned in the very beginning of Bhagavata as Caitanya-caritamrta. There is only one religion in the world to be followed by one and all, and that is Bhagavata Dharma, or the religion which teaches one to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead and no one else.
Though this has been rejected right at the beginning of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. All other forms of worship, and this is what is being established. So now we come to this beautiful verse. Vasudeva Paradeva Veda, Vasudeva Paramaka, Vasudeva Parayoga, Vasudeva Parakriya, Vasudeva Param Jnanam, Vasudeva Param Tapa, Vasudeva Parodharmo, Vasudeva Paragati. In the revealed scriptures, well, someone can read maybe. Yeah.
Shall I read? In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know him. Religion, that is dharma, is rendering loving service unto him. He is the supreme goal of life.
So Vasudev is to be worshipped. Sridhar Swami, he comments, you know, that someone may ask, well, do the Vedas recommend different types of you know, worship, of different yagyas in the Vedas that different yagyas describe? He says, yeah, but because all the Vedic mantras aim at Vasudev, all sacrifices aim at Vasudev. There is, you know, don't the Yoga Sutras describe different like yoga activities? Yeah, but the purpose of yoga is to realize Krishna or realize Vasudev. There are so many fruitive activities described also in the Vedas, but ultimately the results of all those fruitive activities is awarded by Krishna himself. You know, we hear also so much about different transcendental knowledge, but actually what is the object of transcendental knowledge? Is Krishna. He is himself the topmost knowledge. Same for austerities. So, you know, religion ultimately is loving service unto him because he's the supreme goal of life. So this verse also answers the question, the first two questions by the sages, you know, what is the ultimate good for all the people? And, you know, what is the essence of all scriptures? This is also answering the same question. The same thing is being established. That he is the ultimate activity is rendering service to Vasudeva because he's the supreme goal of life. So now, the verses that from verse 30 to verse 33, we're going to hear the answer to question number 4. Question number 4 was tell us about the avatars in relationship to the creation. So we're going to hear about the Purusha avatars in these verses. Okay. Okay. So verse number 30. Just 1 second. I'm going to read the Sanskrit. Sai Vedan Sasar Jagre Bhagavan Atmamaya Ya Sadasat Rupaya Cha So Guna Maya Guno Vibhu. In the beginning of the material creation, the absolute personality of Godhead, Vasudev, in his transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy. So the Lord performed there, you could say that there is 2 different activities that the Lord performs in relationship to the material world. One is the pastime of the creation of the material world. And that's the 4th question is directed towards that. We want to hear about the pastimes of the Lord in relationship to the creation. And another, another set of, another aspect of the activities of the Supreme Lord in relationship with the world, the material world, is his pastimes, his activities. So in relationship to his pastimes, that question will be answered in chapter 3. But now we're hearing about the pastime of the creation, how the Lord, expands himself as Karanodaksha Vishnu, and from Karanodaksha Vishnu, from the pores of his body, multiple universes are emanating. He's actually responsible for the creation of the material ingredients, and he is the one actually that glances at the material energy and activates the Mahatattva. So different universes are emanating from his body like empty cells, and then there is another expansion from Karanodaksha Vishnu. This is Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he enters within each of those universes, and he, from his perspiration, he creates the Garbhodaksha ocean where he's resting just for a second of his life, and then from him, Lord Brahma is born, and then Lord Brahma carries out with the creation, the assembling of the different material ingredients. And another expansion from Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he enters within the material universe, and he enters within every atom, and he enters within the heart of every living entity. So in this way, we have 3 Purusha avatars. And one is the super soul of every individual living entity. And one is the super soul, Garbhodaksha Vishnu is the super soul of the collective living entities of the one universe. And Karanodaksha Vishnu is the super soul of all the collective universes. So different forms of the Lord are expanding, and this is what is being explained here. And in the Bhagavatam, there is going to be many, many chapters, dedicated, I believe I mentioned this before, to the creation. We're going to hear that in 2nd canto, and then in the 3rd canto, many chapters. And then we're going to hear now also at the beginning. This chapter is ending with this, answering this question, and then chapter 3 is going to begin also with a description of these Purusha avatars. And why the description is there of the Purusha avatars? Because the Lila avatars come into the material world through the Purusha avatar, through Garbhodaksha Vishnu. They are expansions of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and they enter into the material world through him. So that's the connection. And that's the connection between this 2nd chapter and the 3rd chapter. So text 31. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be, one of the created beings. He's always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. So now, the one thing also is the difference between Lord Brahma, we were discussing Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And is that out of the three, both Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they are in touch with the material energy and they are affected by the material energy. Vishnu is not. Even in his Lila as the creator and as the Paramatma, he's not in touch with the material energy. He's always in his transcendental position. While Lord Shiva, and we're talking of not Sadashiva. Sadashiva is in the spiritual world, between the material world and the spiritual world in his abode. That Sadashiva is also transcendental. But the Sadashiva that is being described here, which is in the material world, in charge of the destruction, he's also to some degree affected by the modes of nature. And of course, Lord Brahma is a living entity, usually a living entity, sometimes is the Lord himself. And he is also affected by the three modes of material nature. So therefore, if we want to transcend the modes of material nature, we need to approach the Supreme Lord Krishna. That's the implication that it was mentioned before. And they were saying, like from wood, you can derive some benefit. From smoke, you can derive some benefit. But ultimately, you derive benefit from fire. Fire is used for the Vedic sacrifices. So sometimes someone may claim that, that wood is better than smoke, right? Because from a smoke, you cannot do anything, right? And but actually, the idea is, so sometimes people say that, the mode of ignorance is better than the mode of passion. And they worship Lord Shiva. And it is true that sometimes when you sleep, you can have some kind of realization or enter into some kind of meditative state. But in any case, the point is that if we want to attain transcendence, if we want to attain the Supreme Lord and the ultimate goal, we have to go beyond the modes of material nature. And that is done through worship of Vishnu. In our case, where actually what is being described here as the topmost form of worship is the worship of Krishna. So there is no need to worship anybody else. So the super soul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. Thus the Lord of the universes maintains all planets inhabited by demigods, men and lower animals. Assuming the roles of incarnations, he performed pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. So what is the answer to which question? Is this the answer?
Why does Krishna come?
Yeah,
Third
exactly. To reclaim those in the mode of goodness. And the same question is going to be answered in other places in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. We'll find that in verse 1:835 in Kunti's prayers. And I will find it in other verses. Like 10:849. But but this is the purpose of the Lord. The Lord comes to reclaim those in the mode of goodness. We're going to hear different reasons or for the purpose of the Lord. Ultimately, the Lord comes to satisfy his devotees. He comes to perform pastimes for the devotees who are very much missing him, and attract them back to the spiritual world. So that this is the end of second chapter. So assuming the roles of incarnations, he performed pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. Now, chapter 3 is entitled Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So now we're going to hear about all these incarnations. And chapter 3 begins with a description of the Purusha avatars. Like I mentioned before, the Purusha avatars, through the Purusha avatars, the different Lila avatars come. I just wanted to, before we move into the next chapter, I wanted to just focus on a couple of purposes of this second chapter that have a few nice points. So in verse 32, it shows that how can we perceive the Paramatma? It's very interesting. It says that, okay, someone would like to read, someone who has not contributed yet.
As from wood, fire can be manifested, or as butter can be churned out of milk. So also the presence of the Lord as a Paramatma can be felt by the process of legitimate hearing and chanting.
Okay. More impetus to hear and chant, right?
Yes.
Continue.
The Lord can be realized through the oral reception of the transcendental message. And that is the only way to experience the transcendental subject. As fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness of man can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. His divine grace, the spiritual master, can kindle the spiritual fire from the wood-like living entity by imparting proper spiritual message injected through the receptive ear.
So spiritual knowledge, transcendental knowledge, is not, they say it's not taught, it's caught. You basically, the spiritual master, by coming in touch with the spiritual master, we become enlightened. Through service to the spiritual master, we become enlightened. We can read the Bhagavad Gita and we can do so many things, but unless we actually get the blessings of our spiritual masters, we cannot enter into the mysteries of this knowledge. It is through service. It is through submissive inquiry. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita, right? Paripratena and sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam is through submission, inquiry, and service. Then we can actually develop this transcendental knowledge by which we come to actually perceive the Paramatma and beyond the Paramatma through hearing. Ramananda Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Sorry Prabhuji for interruption. Prabhuji, I have one doubt. Can I ask now, Prabhuji?
If it's in connection with the topic, yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, I was thinking, I have a question regarding worship of Brahma, Vishnu, and Lord Shiva.
Okay.
Can I ask now, Prabhuji?
Go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji, like we have seen, like there are, like we are devotees of Vishnu, so Vaishnavas are there, and there are so many devotees of Lord Shiva. So Saivites are also there, and so many devotees of Kali, Durga, like Saktas. So Vaishnavas are there, and Saivites are there, Saktas are there, and so many devotees of Ganeshas and Hanuman, so many. But we have never seen any temple and worshippers of Lord Brahma. Why is like that?
Actually, there is a story about that. I don't remember it now myself. Anyone remembers the story? There is one temple of Lord Brahma, only one, I believe. And there is a story behind
That's for Rajasthan.
Huh?
Rajasthan. There's one in Rajasthan, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So, but do you know there is a story about that? Anyone knows the story? I forgot now. Don't remember.
The story, he was cursed by his wife actually, that there will not be any followers of him and he will only have one temple, that is in Pushkar, Rajasthan.
That's it. There you have it.
Yes.
Thank you, Charulata Radhika. Okay, answered?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we move to the next. So this is the answer to the fourth question, and then we're moving into, and I was just giving you the answer to the same question from other chapters. This is from Kunti's prayers. And yet others say that you appear to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. Many different verses. Drona Andara said, please permit us to be born on the planet Earth, so that after our appearance, the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller and Master of all planets, will also appear and spread devotional service, the ultimate goal of life, so that those born in the material world may very easily be delivered from the miserable condition of materialistic life by accepting this devotional service. Okay, so now we enter into chapter 3. So the first 5 verses describe the 3 Purusha avatars. Then we have a description of the very brief description of 22 avatars, which is the answer to question number 5. And then we have verse 28, which is perhaps one of the most important verses in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's considered the Paribhasa Sutra. And we're going to explore that verse in detail today. And then verse 29 is the Phala Srutri, the fruit of hearing. And then from 30 to 39, we're going to hear a little how progressing from matter to realization of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And 40 to 44, it comes as the glories of Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And this is the answer to question number 6. Bruhi Yogesvare Krishna. Now, please tell us where have the religious principles gone now that Krishna has departed to his own abode, accompanied by knowledge, religion, etc. So that's chapter 3. Today, we're not covering the whole chapter. We will cover until verse 39. So, okay, so let's go. Let's read first verse number 1. The purport to this verse number 1 is really nice. It's a wonderful explanation of reality. Prabhupada is so expert at describing things in a very clear and concise way. In just one purport, explains the whole reason for the material existence and, you know, the cause of it. So we'll read it, but let's just read the Sanskrit. Now, I want you to notice in this verse number 1, that the word Bhagavan is being used. And this is important because we're going to use that the word Bhagavan is only going to be used in a few verses in this chapter. Even though it's describing different Lila avatars, still the word Bhagavan is exclusive for Krishna, Krishna Balaram. So here, Sutta Uvacha, Jagrihe Parusham Rupam Bhagavam Mahat Adivi Sambhutan Sodashakalam Adao Lokasi Shikshaya. Sutta said, in the beginning of the creation, the Lord, Bhagavan, first expanded himself in the universal form of the Purusha incarnation and manifested all the ingredients for the material creation. And thus, at first, there was the creation of the 16 principles of material action. This was for the purpose of creating the material universe. So let's read. This is something from the purport. Someone would like to read?
In the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, Shema, go for it.
Yes.
Shema Priya.
Bhagavad Gita, it is also mentioned that the material world is created at certain intervals and then again destroyed. This creation and destruction is done by the Supreme Will because of the conditioned souls or the Nitya-Baddha living beings. The Nitya-Baddha or the eternally conditioned souls have the sense of individuality or ahankara, which dictates them sense enjoyment, which they are unable to have constitutionally. The Lord is the only enjoyer, all others are enjoyed. The living beings are predominated enjoyers. But the eternally conditioned souls, forgetful of this constitutional position, have strong aspirations to enjoy it.
So I'll just focus is that the Nityavada or the eternally conditioned souls have the sense of individuality or ahankar, which dictates them sense enjoyment, which they are unable to have constitutionally. I mean, it's master. Only Prabhupada can write like this, right? The Lord is the only enjoyer, and all others are enjoyed. The living entities are predominated enjoyers, but the eternally conditioned souls, forgetful of this constitutional position, have strong aspirations to enjoy. Someone else.
The chance to enjoy matter. Should I carry on, Prabhuji?
Yeah, please go ahead.
The chance to enjoy matter is given to the conditioned souls in the material world, and the side by side, they are given the chance to understand the real constitutional position. Those fortunate living entities who catch the truth and surrender onto the lotus feet of Vasudeva after many, many births in the material world, join the eternally liberated souls, and thus are allowed to enter into the kingdom of God. After this, such fortunate living entities need not come again within the occasional material creation, but those who cannot catch the constitutional truth are again merged into the Mahatattvas at the time of annihilation of the material creation.
Prabhupada has put everything there in a nutshell, right? Because the whole idea is why is the Lord creating the material world? You know, sometimes one may wonder, you know, why did the Lord created the material world? So it's being answered here, right? Why? Why is the Lord creating the material world? What is the need of the prison house? We need a prison house. Okay, so tell me, what is the purpose of the material universe?
To understand absolute truth, Prabhu.
Okay, Kolokeshwari, that's one, but it's a dual purpose. Okay, what is the other one? That's actually the real purpose. You're right. That's the real one. But there is two things there.
To fulfill the desire of the jiva to enjoy the material.
Yeah. It's here. The Prabhupada is written it so nicely. I mean, it's like, it's really wonderful. It says, the chance to enjoy matter is given to the conditioned souls in the material world. And side by side, they're given the chance to understand the real constitutional position. Okay? So that's the purpose. Now, those fortunate living entities who catch the truth and surrender unto the lotus feet of Vasudeva after many, many births in the material world, join the eternally liberated souls and thus are allowed to enter into the kingdom of God. But after this, such fortunate living entities need not come again within the occasional material creation, but those who cannot catch the constitutional truth are again merged into the Mahatattva at the time of the annihilation of the material creation. So this is the reason why the material world is created. Some living entities, they want to enjoy separately from Krishna. Okay? Now, this is also from the purport, and I explained that just a few minutes before, but we can read a little more. Someone else can read?
There are three features who affect the material creation and this form, who is known as the Karno-Dakshai Vishnu, is the first of the three. The others are known as the Garbho-Dakshai Vishnu and the Shiro-Dakshai Vishnu, which we shall know one after another. The innumerable universes are generated from the skin holes of this Karno-Dakshai Vishnu. And in each one of the universes, the Lord enters as Garbho-Dakshai Vishnu. Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.3.1 purport.
Therefore, the conclusion is that the Purusha avatar is manifested in three features. First, the Karanadakshay, who creates aggregate material ingredients in the Mahatattva. Second, the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who enters in each and every universe. And third, the Kshirodakshay Vishnu, who is the Paramatma of every material object, organic or inorganic. One who knows these plenary features of the personality of Godhead knows God properly, and thus the knower becomes freed from the material conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease, as is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so I'm gonna read now from verse 2 to 5. Just a translation. As part of the Purusha lies down within the water of the universe, from the navel lake of his body sprout a lotus stem, and from the lotus flower atop this stem, Brahma, the master of all engineers in the universe, becomes manifest. It is believed that all the universal planetary systems are situated on the extensive body of the Purusha, but he has nothing to do with the created material ingredients. His body is eternally in a spiritual existence par excellence. So it's a point out, it was being mentioned before, that the Lord is transcendental always. The devotees with their perfect eyes see the transcendental form of the Purusha, who has thousands of legs, thighs, arms, and faces, all extraordinary. In that body, there are thousands of heads, ears, eyes, and noses. They are decorated with thousands of helmets and glowing earrings, and are adorned with garlands. So now it's talking about the universal form. And, you know, also how those people who actually enlighten, those people who have bhakti, how they can see and perceive the Lord everywhere. And this is the object also of our study, that we are able to actually perceive Krishna in every situation and in every circumstance. And, you know, like Bhagavad Gita is giving us, you know, chapter 7, knowledge of the absolute. We're hearing about how to perceive the Lord in matter, right? How to perceive the Lord in the creation. And then we have chapter, you know, chapter 10, the universal form, is describing the different vibhutis, how we can perceive the Lord. Chapter 9, so much description there. So the point also being made here is that everything that exists is the Supreme Lord. And therefore, the devotee, he sees the Lord everywhere, because there's nothing outside of him. Now, text 5. This form, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, the second manifestation of the Purusha, is the sore and indestructible seed of multifarious incarnations within the universe. From the particles and portions of this form, different living entities like demigods, men, and others are created. Okay, so this is called like Vyayam Avyayam. It's like indestructible seed, because so many emanations are coming from him. At the same time, he remains the complete balance. So all the, you know, this Garbhodakshay Vishnu, he enters within every universe. The Lord Brahma actually manifests from his belly. And, you know, all the different incarnations are manifesting from him. And along with Lord Brahma, you know, so many things are manifesting from him, but he remains, you know, like, it's like described like indestructible seed. You know, generally when you plant a seed and a tree grows out of it, you lose the seed. You get the tree, but you lose the seed. But with the Lord, you know, he enters, he manifests everything. And then at the time of, you know, at the end of Lord Brahma's day, everything is wound up again within himself. And then at the beginning of, and you know, then when another Lord Brahma comes out and everything is coming from him through that lotus, along with the different incarnations. Okay. So this is from the purport. This Garbhodakshay, second paragraph. this Garbhodaksha Vishnu is glorified in the Vedas in the hymns of the Garva Stuti, which begins with the description of the Lord as having thousands of heads, etc. This is the Purusha Shukta. You will hear this in second canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, one chapter dedicated to this. The Garbhodaksha Vishnu is the Lord of the universe, and although he appears to be lying within the universe, he is always transcendental. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are incarnations of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And all the incarnations within the universe are emanations from this Kshirodaksha Vishnu. So now the text itself is saying Garbhodaksha Vishnu. In the purple, we read Kshirodaksha Vishnu. So sometimes the bodies get a little confused with this. But the point, you know, they're coming, Kshirodaksha Vishnu is also coming through Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So that's, you know, we just take it, they come through Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and then Kshirodaksha Vishnu and the different incarnations. Now, what comes now is we're going to hear a description of 22 avatars of the Supreme Lord. Now, the avatars of the Lord are innumerable, countless. Only 22 which are prominent are being described. And in verse 28, we're going to hear how Krishna, he's not an incarnation. He's actually the Supreme Lord from whom all other incarnations come. He is the source. These are all different expansions. And there are different types. And if you want to study this in great detail, I mean, in the student handbook, you have a table there. So some you know, classification is there to see different types of avatars. So we have the Purusha avatar. So who are the Purusha avatar? You should know by now, right? The three Vishnus. And it is interesting, you know, that basically one point is there that when the Lord creates, right, the material world, it's not that just the Lord, that everything just manifests like this, you know, but there is a procedure, there is a process. And whenever we see anything that is being created in the material, in the universe, we can see that it's not just manifested like this. Sometimes these atheist people, I mean, if there is no a creator, it means that the universe just manifested, you know. It's just there. If we don't have a creator, but whenever we have a creator, there is some effort, some action taking place. For the Lord, this is a lila. This is not an effort. This is not work. That's his pastime. But there is a way in which the creation unfolds, and which is being briefly described in these verses. So we have three Purusha avatars, and then we have the Guna avatars. How many Guna avatars are there? Three Guna avatars. It's Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Then we have Lila avatars. How many Lila avatars are there? Countless. Out of which we're going to hear about 22 incarnations. And then we have the Manvantara avatars. So in each day of Lord Brahma, there are 14 Manus, and which you know, they reign for like 72 Divya Yugas, right? So they reign for a long time, and for each of these Manus, an incarnation of the Lord appears, and you know, he helps assist in the managing of the universe. And you have Yuga avatars. So how many Yuga avatars are there? 4 Yuga avatars for the different Yugas, and they come to establish the particular Dharma for that particular Yuga. Okay, and then you have Shakti Avesh avatars. So Shakti Avesh avatars, that generally they're living entities who are empowered the Lord enters within them to perform a particular function. And examples of Satyavesha avatar are the 4 Kumaras, Narada Muni, Parashuram. So, and when we are hearing about these 22 Lila avatars here, some of them are not just Lila avatars, they may be also Satyavesha avatar, or maybe Yuga avatar, you know, maybe it's not, you get what I mean, that this criteria is not exclusive, that was, you know, you cannot be 2 of them, you know. For example, like Yuga avatar is sorry, Purusha avatar and Guna avatar. So you have Vishnu and Vishnu. Vishnu is Purusha avatar and it's also Guna avatar. Okay. So the description of let's see if I have, because I usually skip that, but okay, it's there. I'm gonna put it on today. Okay. So now in this chapter, we're hearing of these 22 principal avatars. We're going to hear the Kumaras, Varaha, Narada, Naranarayana, Kapila, Dattatreya, Yagya, Rishabhadev, Prithu, Matsya, Kurma, Dhanvantari, Mohini, Narsingha, Vamana, Parashuram, Vyasadev, Ramachandra, Balaram, Krishna, Buddha, and Kalki. So each of these incarnations of the Lord display limited powers. As much power.
Prabhu, can you put the screen back? I just did not read the last line.
Kalki. Kalki avatar.
Yeah, that's Krishna, Buddha, and Kalki. That's right.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, you're gonna get this in the outline. I send it to. Did you get the outlines from the previous classes? I gave it to Aniruddha.
Yeah, we have got that. We have got the outline.
Okay. So different. Okay, you have a question? Tell us.
Yes. Why here Krishna's name is mentioned as Avtaras? He's not Avatar.
Okay, so that's a very good question, and I'm going to answer that question later. Okay, it's a very good question. But we're going to answer to that question with verse 28, the Paribhasha Sutra, that will clarify that. Okay. So it'll come in a minute. So we have like the different incarnations. It's the same Lord. There is only one Lord, but the Lord appears in different forms to display to execute a particular mission. Something is particularly needed, a specific time, and the Lord comes and displays specific power. So like Parasuram and Nishingadev, they displayed anger to destroy, to kill the demons. Narada, Varaha, Buddha, they created faith in the mass of people. Buddha created faith in himself. People, people who were atheistic. Prabhupada explains in the purport, he took them away from the Vedas, but they developed faith in him, and he is an incarnation of the Lord. Ramananda, you have your hand up again, or is it, or is you just put it up? Because I just saw you. You have another question? No. Okay. Sorry. Ram Dambantari. Okay, they displayed his fame. Balaram, Mohini, Vamana, his beauty. Dattatreya, Matsya, Kumara, Kapila exhibited his transcendental knowledge. Narayan Rishis exhibited his renunciation. So different, all these different powers of the Lord, they are also meant to attract the mind of the conditioned living entity towards him. And, you know, I mean, the different incarnations, they perform a particular, you know, they achieve or attain a particular goal, benefit for the living entities. You know? Like in the case of, you know, distributing transcendental knowledge, Nara, Narayan rishis exhibited renunciation, because, and as we were reading in the second chapter, it was described that unless we become free from sinful life, we cannot understand the Supreme Lord. So the Lord, in his form as Nara, Narayan rishis, he came to display renunciation. And this helps us actually to understand the value of renunciation. The first incarnations described in the Srimad-Bhagavatam in this list is the 4 Kumaras. The 4 Kumaras are considered one incarnation. And they also came to display that sense of renunciation. And the idea is that, you know, like in modern society, you know, the principle is that we follow the people on the top. We follow the leaders. Like nowadays, who are the leaders? The leaders are sense gratifiers. The principle of renunciation is very much lacking in modern society. But we see in Vedic society that the highest social status, you could say, is the sannyas. And that sets a mood that actually the goal is not to enjoy the senses. The goal is to renounce sense gratification. And we see that the sannyasis, even though they have renounced, they are happy, they are satisfied. So that creates an impression for the mass of people that actually my life is not meant for, you know, sense gratification, but it's meant for the higher endeavor of self-realization. So the forms of Nara, Narayan, Rishi, they came for that purpose, actually, to exhibit the renunciation of the Supreme Lord. And we can read a little bit on the purpose when it comes. I'm just like doing, with this chapter, what I usually do, I do like an overview, and we focus mainly on a couple of verses. But we can read still the translations, but this is yes, like an overview. And then you have Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna is not an incarnation, and I'm yet not answering the question of Ramananda Krishna. The question that Ramananda Krishna is, why is Krishna listed among the incarnations? Okay, but that's going to come later. But Lord Krishna is not an incarnation. He is the supreme, he is the source of all incarnations. And therefore he is the complete form. When the different incarnations, they come for a specific purpose. They come for a specific, mission. They have a specific role. But what Krishna is himself. When he's not having any specific mission, when he's not having any specific role as the Supreme Lord, when Krishna is just being himself, when the Lord is being himself, that's Krishna. And the love of the Braj Bhaktis towards him is on the basis of whom he is. It's not on the basis of his personality. I'm sorry, it's not on the basis of his position, it's on the basis of his personality. Krishna is such a wonderful person, and we love him so much. But with the other forms, most of the time, the attraction is based on the particular power that incarnation displays. And therefore, that devotion towards all those other forms is tinged with some sense of awe and reverence. But when the Lord is himself, when you could say he takes the hat off being the Lord, in this case, the crown, the helmet, and he just is himself, that's Krishna. And that's the most powerful, the complete form, the fountainhead of all incarnations. And the Bhagavatam is pointing out towards the worship of the Lord as Krishna Bhagavan. as Krishna, and not just Krishna, Dwarka Krishna, but actually Vrindavan Krishna, Braj Krishna. So Sri Krishna is the possessor of the attributes 100%. So this in the Nectar of Devotion, we have a description of how Krishna has 64 qualities and he has possessed all attributes 100%. And then we have Narayan, which displays 60 qualities and is 93%. Then Shiva, 55 qualities and displays 84% of the full attributes of the Lord. And then Brahma and the living entities up to 50, up to 78%. So the perfected living being, by developing 78% of the above attributes in fullness, can enter the planet of Krishna Loka after leaving the present material body. Okay, so I generally, I don't know if you notice, I usually don't go through this because it's very technical. But anyway, today I'm going to take a chance because it's you know, it's a lot of names to memorize. But anyway, we'll just go through it. You're not going to be tested on this, I don't think so, on the test, so don't worry about it. But it's interesting, and as I said, if you really want to go deep into this, you read Srimad-Bhagavatam, and there is actually it's a big book, but because it's a lot of Sanskrit verses, you can read it very quickly, and it's very interesting. So now, each of these expansions of Sri Krishna, they have a particular name. Okay, so Swayam Rupa, that's the original form, and that's Krishna's form as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. Okay, and then you have Swayam Prakash and Prabhat Prakash. So these are the same form, these are expansions of this form. They look exactly the same, but they are not the original. Like in the case of when Krishna expands himself in the Rasa Lila or expands himself to marry the 16,108 wives. That is the same as the Swayam Rupa, but expansions. And then you have Vaibhava Prakash, which refers to the son of the son of Devaki and Shri Balaramji. Okay. Now, so there are three different, you could say, three different main forms. One is Swayam Rupa. Then you Tat Ekatma, which are the different. These are different incarnations which they have different forms. Okay, and some of them they reside in the spiritual world, and some of them they are actually also they reside in the spiritual world, but they also come to the material world. So out of this, you have like the first four form: Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and then you have these 24 forms, which basically they are the same forms of Lord Vishnu, but the different weapons are placed differently in different hands. And then you have Narayan, from whom the second Chaturvyuha expands. It's technical, and to be honest with you, these things, we recite it a lot of the time for our own purification. It's very nice to hear it, but it's highly complex actually how this work, how all this works, So this Tat Ekatma, you have, okay, let's see. You have this Vilas, and then you have this Swamsa. Just give me a second. I get it right. Yeah. So this Swamsa, these are also personal expansions, and these are generally the ones that come to the material world. That kind of expansions of the expansion. They're less in power than the Swansa forms. Sorry, that the Vilas forms. Okay, so we have Tadekama, we have Vilas and Swamsa. So in Swamsa, they display less power than the Vilas forms. And this includes the Purusha avatars, through which the Lila avatars come, the Manvantara avatars comes, and the Yuga avatars come. Okay, and then the third type is Avesha Rupa. Okay, and these are divided into two. Sakti Avesha avatars, which are living entities, which are empowered by the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord enters into them and performs a particular task through them. Like, for example, in the case of Vyasadev, the Lord displays the editing talent, and he edits the Vedas through Vyasadev. Then you have like we were talking about the Kumaras exhibiting their renunciation, or Narada Muni with the establishing Bhakti, preaching Bhakti. So these are not the Lord himself, but they are carrying this Shakti of the Lord. Therefore, they're called Shakti Aves. And then within these are also the Vibhutis. And the Vibhutis are described in the Bhagavad Gita, right? The Vibhuti Yoga chapter, where we hear about different manifestations in the material creation, which carry a specific potency of the Lord. Okay, so there you have it. I think this table is there in your handbook. You can look at it, read it here and then, and gradually something begins to kind of enter into our memories. But the wonderful thing about this is that the Lord is a person. And the Lord is so, he manifests in so many different forms to satisfy the desires of so many different living entities. And to actually, for the sake of, Lila, for the sake of pastime, for the sake of enjoyment with the living entities, he's manifesting all this. I mean, we're talking of millions and millions of forms, right? Like you have in one day of Lord Brahma, yes, in one day of Lord Brahma, there are 40 Manvantaras. And one day of Brahma, you have like 4,000 Yuga avatars, just in one day of Lord Brahma. So how many Yuga avatars in the whole life of Lord Brahma? How many Manvantaras in the whole life of Lord Brahma? And the life of Lord Brahma is just but one breath of Mahavishnu. So who is the Supreme Lord? And Mahavishnu is just an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of the Lord. It's not the Lord himself. So what is the power of the Supreme Lord? What is his power? Okay, so we're going to have a break now. There was a hand up there, maybe this lady from China, I don't remember her name, or how to say Yaji, is that how you say your name?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. So on the first slide you were saying there was like a Devaki's son. Are you referring to like the baby form of Krishna?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we can have a break. It's 3:37. Just marking your clock. We'll resume at in 10 minutes from now. Okay.
Prabhuji, just before you go,
okay,
I'll ask you a question after the break.
Okay, as you wish. Well, you can ask now if you want.
Okay, just a question around, you said that, when Krishna's avatar appears in the material world, they are lesser in form. So the clarifying that question that Prabhuji asked before, whether Krishna's name is mentioned in incarnation.
Okay, we're going to
but the
answer
person
that.
Krishna,
We're going to touch on that now with the verse 28. Okay.
Okay, cool.
But
I'll ask that.
I didn't say that when Krishna comes, he comes. I was talking about the Swamsa forms. They carry less power than the Vilas forms, according to Srimad-Bhagavatam. That's what I was saying. But when Krishna comes, he comes as he himself, full. He's Swayan Rupa. And he comes once in the day of Lord Brahma. It's not a lesser form, it's the original. He comes, the original form comes.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's the answer anyway to your question, but we're going to explore that in more detail later. Okay. So it's 3:39. You can take 10 minutes from now. Okay.
Thank you, bro.
So from verses 6 until verse 27, well, to verse 25 to be precise, we're going to hear about different 22 incarnations. Would you like to read them, or would you like just to continue with the class?
Well, I think we can continue with the class.
Yeah. Everybody else feels like it?
Yes, we'll continue with the class.
Okay. So these different incarnations are described, and basically Prabhupada is they're very briefly described. Some of these incarnations, they're going to be discussed later on in Srimad-Bhagavatam, okay? And this is the answer of Sutta Goswami to the questions by the sages at Naimisharanya. Now, the purposes are very sweet, and it's nice that the fact that we're not reading them now doesn't mean that you don't have to read them at home. Please read them. And the whole objective for a study is to become absorbed in the different pastimes of the Lord. So, but I mentioned already all the different incarnations that are mentioned, and they all carry a specific purpose, and Prabhupada is explaining about this. Now, I'm just going to read a couple of verses amongst this, because it is important for the discussion of the verse 28, okay? So we're going to go to verse 23. Ekonavimshe vinshati me vrishnishu prapyajamani Rama Krishna viti bhuvo bhagavam aharadvaram. In the 19th and 20th incarnations, the Lord advented himself as Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna in the family of Vrishni, the Yadu dynasty. And by so doing, he removed the burden of the world. Okay, so now, so far, okay, let's read from the purport. The specific mention of the word Bhagavan in this text indicates that Balaram and Krishna are the original forms of the Lord. This will be further explained later. Lord Krishna is not an incarnation of the Purusha, as we learn from the beginning of this chapter. Where? First verse. Huh? We had the word Bhagavan there also. How the Lord expands himself as the Purusha incarnations. And in verse 5, we hear how all the incarnations come through the Purusha avatars, through Garbhodaksha and Vishnu, all these incarnations. Now, please make sure you're muted. Now, of all the incarnations have been described, the word Bhagavan is only used here for this verse. And that's why Prabhupada, following the Acharyas, is explaining that they are not, even though they are listed as incarnations, then Jiva Goswami is going to say that, yeah, they are listed as incarnations because in one sense, they're similar. They come, they appear, they perform pastimes. So there is a similarity, but they are not. And according to the laws of logic, when you make a statement and then you make another second statement that is different to the first statement, the second statement carries more weight. So for example, if I tell you, bring me a glass of water, and then I say, well, bring me a glass of milk, you know, the second statement carries more weight, right? So in the same way, now within the same section, of course, we're hearing that in this verse is listed as one of the incarnations, but now we're going to come to the emperor verse. Okay, so, but I just, we're just touching upon it now. Okay, so I believe Prabhuji's question is already being addressed. We're gonna, the emperor verse will make it even more clear. Okay, so now 24, we continue with Lord Buddha, verse 25th is Kalki incarnation, and then 26. O Brahmanas, the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible sources of water. Okay, so there are countless, and they cannot be listed in one book. You know, only 22 have been mentioned, and very briefly. But we're going to read a little bit from this verse. Halfway through, it says, Sri Prahlad Maharaj said in his prayer, "My Lord, you manifest as many incarnations as there are species of life, namely the aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, the men, the demigods, etc., just for the maintenance of the faithful and the annihilation of the unfaithful. You advance yourself in this way in accordance with the necessity of the different yugas. In the Kali Yuga, you have incarnated Garv as a devotee. This incarnation of the Lord in the Kali Yuga is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are many other places, both in the Bhagavatam and in other scriptures, in which the incarnation of the Lord as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explicitly mentioned. In the Brahma Samhita also it is said indirectly that although there are many incarnations of the Lord, such as Ram, Nrsimha, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, and many others, the Lord himself sometimes incarnates in person. Lord Krishna and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are not, therefore, incarnations, but the original source of all other incarnations. This will be clearly explained in the next sloka. So the Lord is the inexhaustible source for innumerable incarnations, which are not always mentioned. But such incarnations are distinguished by specific, extraordinary feats, which are impossible to be performed by any living being. That is the general test to identify an incarnation of the Lord, directly and indirectly empowered. Some incarnations mentioned above are almost plenary portions. For instance, the Kumaras are empowered with transcendental knowledge, Shakti-avesh. Shinarad is empowered with devotional service, Shakti-avesh. Maharaj Prithu is an empowered incarnation with executive function, Shakti-avesh. The Matsya incarnation is directly a plenary portion, Lila Avatar, Tad Ekatma. So the innumerable incarnations of the Lord are manifested all over the universes constantly without cessation, as water flows constantly from waterfalls. Text 27. All the rishis, manus, demigods, and descendants of Manu who are especially powerful are plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. This also includes the Prajapatis. So those who are now purple, those who are comparatively less powerful are called Vibhuti, and those who are comparatively more powerful are called Avesha incarnations. Okay, so this was part, within the Avesha, actually we have this Sakti Avesh and we have this Vibhuti. So now we come to the Emperor verse, and it's a memorization verse, and it's called the Parivasa Sutra, because this is, as I mentioned, is the emperor verse, because this verse basically is given at the beginning of the Srimad-Bhagavatam and makes a topic clear. It's very unambiguous. It's not subject to interpretation. It's very clear, very direct, and is establishing the principle that actually Krishna is not an incarnation, but Krishna is the source. You see, up until this point in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, that Krishna, I mean, up until this point in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, there has not been, clearly mentioned. There actually it's been clearly mentioned that there are many indications to think that Krishna is the supreme source, right? We have already many statements, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Then when Sutta Goswami begins to answer the questions of the sages, Munaya Sadhu Pristoham Bhavabdib Lokamangalam Yatkrita Krishna Samprasno Yanadma Suprasidati says your questions are worthy and they're very valuable because they relate to whom? To Krishna. So already he's expressing who he wants to speak about. Doesn't want to speak about other incarnations, right? He wants to speak about Krishna. But nothing is being really mentioned, like clearly establishing that Krishna is the supreme source. And this is established in this verse. Okay, so we can recite the verse. Ete chamsa kala pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Midayanti Yuge Yuge. Now, all the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions. So, ete, these, all the above. Cha. Now, cha means like not just what is being mentioned, but also those who have not been mentioned. All the above mentioned and those who have not been mentioned also, they are either amsa, plenary portions, or kala, portions of the plenary portions. They are all coming from the Purusha, Pumsa, Ete Chansa Kala Pumsa. They are all expansions of the Purusha that was mentioned at the beginning of the third chapter. All that is being mentioned. Okay, clear. Now, but this in Sanskrit is the word tu. Krishna's tu, Bhagavan Swayam. That's like it's changing the direction of what is being, what is being said. Now I'm saying something else. All the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. He is the original person. He is the fountainhead. Now, second half of the verse. Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. It says that all of them appear whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. So even this second part of the verse is referring to the first line, because Krishna is in singular. Okay? And this verse is in plural. Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. All of them appear in planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the demons. The Lord appears to protect the theists. So who? All these incarnations, that's their specific purpose. Okay? Krishna also comes for that purpose. But he's on a different category. He's the source of all incarnations. Okay? So before you have the answering your questions, I'm going to just continue with the explanation, because perhaps the question will be answered as we move ahead, okay? And if it's not, then you can answer, you can ask after. So write it down, keep it to yourself. Now, Jiva Goswami, in this, you know, he is considered by Prabhupada one of the greatest philosophers in the history of the world, and he is a direct follower of Lord Chaitanya, and basically he wrote 6 theatres, like, you know, books in which he is establishing different philosophical points. And so these are called the Sat Sandarbhas, the 6 Sandarbhas. Basically, Sandarbha means like something which is being like, what's the word in English? Anyway, it's composed, it's very nicely arranged, organized, you know. And
we will.
Pardon? Someone said something there? It's okay? Okay. So in the Krishna Sandarbha, he specifically is establishing how Krishna is the topmost expression of divinity. Actually, Jiva Goswami, he is coming to the conclusion that you know, he is establishing three truths, and he says that this is established in the Bhagavatam. Okay. So one of them is, who is the supreme expression of divinity? Who is the supreme source? And that's Krishna. And specifically, he focuses this on Sri Krishna Sandarbha. Then, what is the topmost process? Or what is the topmost practice? And that's Bhakti. So he describes this in Bhakti Sandarbha. And then you have what is the topmost Praman? What is the topmost authority? What is the topmost source of knowledge? And that's Bhagavatam. And he establishes this in Tattva Sandarbha. And then, you know, what is the ultimate goal? What is the Prayojana? That's the Priti Sandarbha, love of God. And then he has the Paramatma Sandarbha, where he discusses about the, you know, the different forms of the Lord and comparing. And then and then he has Paramatma Sandarbha and Bhagavat Sandarbha. So in Sri Krishna Sandarbha, he analyzes this text in great detail. It's very interesting. I sent a document, an article to Aniruddha Prabhu. I don't know if you got it yet, but basically what we're going to discuss is coming very much from that. It's very nicely done. Okay, so now he says, you see the point we made, one may question also, why is so important to establish this, that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, right at the beginning of the Bhagavatam? Well, there are you know, statements elsewhere in the Bhagavatam which seem to indicate maybe the Lord is not the ultimate source. The Lord is an incarnation, or is an expansion of someone else. There are also similar statements outside the Srimad-Bhagavatam. But we want to establish who is the Supreme Lord. We want to know who is the original form. And before the advent of Lord Chaitanya, Krishna was not widely accepted as Swayam Bhagavan. Even nowadays, many Hindus, they don't accept, they think Krishna is an expansion of Vishnu, right? Many people think like this. That's in this book, in this Krishna Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami, he carefully analyzes the matter to put all the contradictory statements in the proper perspective. And as I mentioned, there are several verses in Bhagavatam about Krishna, but none are so definite and clear as this one. So he says that in the scriptures, you will find that a topic is often explained first with a sutra. And this sutra, it has to be, it has specific criteria, you know, to be chosen as such. And it has to be like something which is very, very clear is very, is very unambiguous. Like it says, a third statement, giving the gist of what is about to be presented. And then the rest of the book, the rest of the book expands from it. So in other words, if we later on find something else in the book which may be subject to interpretation, we refer it back to this Paribhasa Sutra for clarification. If it contradicts the Paribhasa Sutra, we take the meaning of the Paribhasa Sutra. We see that verse on the light of the Paribhasa Sutra. That's why it's called the emperor verse. All other verses are like soldiers, that but this is the emperor. All other verses are serving this one. Now, so by definition, it must be short, it must be compact, no ambiguity, it should be clear in meaning, no doubt. It must be a statement of essence, clear in form and without effects. And it's mentioned once in the book, once at the beginning. Okay. Now, when you apply all these criteria to this verse, to Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam, you see that it all fits very well. So when a topic is unknown, and then a sutra makes it known, the sutra is called Paribhasa. So this is the Paribhasa Sutra of the Bhagavatam, the emperor verse, right at the beginning. And we have many other reasons to also believe why Krishna is the Supreme Soul. Okay, so what other reasons are there? For example, in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, we can see, like Jiva Goswami also explains, that you can analyze what is the main topic of a book, but what is being mentioned at the beginning, what is mentioned at the end, and what is mentioned throughout. And we can see that through the Bhagavatam, a lot more content, chapters are given to talk about Krishna. Just the 10th canto is 90 chapters just about Krishna. Then we have in the first canto, we have now, you'll come into that in this module, a few chapters, it's really nectarian, where we hear also about Krishna. Krishna's introduced. And then in the third canto also, we have 4 chapters about Krishna's pastime. So comparatively is so much more time and verses dedicated towards Krishna. Then we hear a lot about the speakers of the Bhagavatam, how they want to hear about Krishna. You just mentioned about Sutta Goswami, how this he actually is, he wants to explain, he wants to hear about Krishna. So anyway, the point being mentioned here is that now, up until this point, there may be some doubt about who is the Supreme Lord. And after we have, now I'm answering the question Prabhu mentioned, is Lord Krishna an incarnation? Is not an incarnation. On the basis of what? On the basis of this verse. Even though he may have been mentioned before and the list of incarnation, because he's just like the incarnations, he's not the incarnation, he's the source. He expands as Balaram, and then from Balaram there is further expansions that lead into all these different incarnations that come into the material world. He's the Swayam Rupa, he's the source, and is the object of the Bhagavatam. Now, what is Gauranga's position? We already read it in the purport by Prabhupada. Prabhupada is explaining that Gauranga is also Swayam Rupa. He's also the Supreme Lord in full. Is the source. This is from Caitanya-caritamrta, from the Mangala Charana in Caitanya-caritamrta, Adi Lila, verse 3. What the Upanishads describe as impersonal Brahman is but the effulgence of his body, and the Lord known as the Super Soul is but his localized plenary portion. Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, full with 6 opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him. Okay, so now all the different incarnations, oops, sorry, I lost my mouse. Yeah. Okay, that ends actually the explanation on this Paribhasa Sutra. Now, there was a few questions there. Let's attend to the questions. Waving, that was the word I was looking for, exactly. Yeah.
Prabhuji, can I ask the question now? Or?
Yeah, go ahead. Jamashtami.
So just Prabhuji, one thing, that verse that you were referring to, like, I'll just go back and find that. It just basically says, 1 minute, I'll just go back. This verse 28. It says, the second part of this says, all of them appear on the planets whenever there is a disturbance created by atheists. When I'm reading this, all of them, I'm presuming that all other incarnations of Krishna appears whenever there's a disturbance. However, I'm reading this way: Lord incarnates to protect the thesis. So does it mean that Krishna appears for two reasons, and other incarnation appear only for one reason? Is that how you read this or not?
I didn't get the final thing. Can you repeat the final thing? I didn't get you.
Okay, so I am reading this, this paragraph in two different parts.
Well,
right?
okay, I get you. The idea,
So
I get it. The idea is like this. I mean, that's how I understand it. The idea is like all these incarnations that have been described, all the 22 incarnations, they appear for this specific purpose. Okay, but Krishna doesn't appear for that purpose. Krishna appears, he is the source of all those incarnations, and he appears for the purpose of exchanging love with the Brijvasis and the devotees. He also is performing, he's killing demons and all these things, but actually that's not the ultimate cause of his appearance.
So when it says the Lord appears for, when you read that last sentence, it says Lord incarnates to protect the thesis. The Lord here is Krishna. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So are we not then saying that he's coming for a purpose then?
Of course, the Lord is coming for a purpose.
For protecting the thesis. That's his purpose, isn't it then?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to establish was, I wanted to establish in this was two things. One is that there are other incarnation of Krishna that is coming for the elimination of atheist, but Krishna is appearing for protecting the thesis. That's what I'm trying to understand.
No. They both no, that's not correct. The incarnations appear for the second. What is being described there refers to all the incarnations. They appear for that purpose. Okay, to kill the demons and to protect the thieves.
So when I say Lord, that means all the incarnation, or is it Krishna is referred here? Who is it talking about?
Okay, I'm just going to read something out to you and see if that makes it more clear. Okay. The second half of the text, Indrari Vyakulam Lokam, Vidayante Yuge Yuge, explains the incarnation's general function. As described in Bhagavad Gita, these incarnations stop the disturbances of atheists and protect theists. Srila Prabhupada writes, in this particular stanza, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is distinguished from other incarnations. According to Srila Jiva Goswami's statement, in accordance with authoritative sources, Lord Krishna is the source of all incarnations. It's not that Lord Krishna has any source of incarnation. All the symptoms of the Supreme Truth in full are present in the person of Lord Shri Krishna. And in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord emphatically declares that there is no truth greater than or equal to himself. In this stanza, the word Swayan is particularly mentioned to confirm that Lord Krishna has no other source than himself. Although in other places, the incarnations as described as Bhagavan
because of their specific functions. Nowhere are they declared to be the Supreme Personality. In this stanza, the word Swayan signifies the supremacy as the summum bonum. So my understanding, and I could be wrong with my limited brain, my understanding is that the fact that the incarnations are coming and are annihilating the demons and protecting the thieves, it doesn't make them to being Swayam Bhagavan. You know, all this is common to all the incarnations. But the one thing that is unique to a Swayam Bhagavan is that he's the fountainhead of all other incarnations. That's my understanding. Is it clear?
Okay, bro. That's good. That's good enough. Just now, last question I have got on this. So why would Krishna's name would be mentioned at all in any case as one of the, even in the list of 22 incarnation, when he is this one Bhagwan? Why would he even be mentioned in that?
Maybe we could ask Sutta Goswami about that one.
Because in the second verse, it clearly says that.
Anyway, Jiva Goswami explains that. Jiva Goswami answers the question, and he says that because there is some similarity. There are definitely some similarity. Lord Krishna also comes. Lord Krishna also appears, perform pastimes, kill demons, protects the devotees. You know. So he's listed amongst them. But then immediately after the verse is said, he, you know, still he's, you know, Krishna's too, he's the source of all incarnations. Now there is one term in Sanskrit in the, let's see if I may have it here actually, 1 second. In Sanskrit, there is one term called is Parokshavad. And Parokshavad means that sometimes things are given in a way that are not so obvious, a little bit kind of difficult to understand, not so clear. Okay. Now that's not applicable to this verse. Okay. The Parivasa Sutra is the opposite. Parivasa Sutra is straightforward, very clear, very concise, you know. But sometimes we have in the scriptures different, like for example, that verse, and I'm giving a little of philosophical speculation here, okay? But the idea is that it's listed among the incarnations, but only for him you hear the word Bhagavan. So it requires a little bit more kind of, you know, intelligence, or more of, you know, absorption and a study to see that actually, yeah, it's mentioned about the incarnation, but he's Bhagavan, not the others.
Mm.
And then it makes people like you to go like, you know?
Yeah. I think the second verse clarifies that. I can see.
Sometimes we, you know, what I was telling you about Parokshavad, you know, it's like, this is applicable to some of the verses in the Chatushloki, you know, particularly the third verse. It's given in a very indirect way. And it says that Krishna takes great pleasure in expressing things in this way because only the devotees can enter into these subtleties and understand it. But some people will remain like, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that this is bad, but it's good in the sense that you are inquisitive, you want to find out more, and then we hear from the acharyas, we study, we'll go deeper, we hear the commentaries, and then like Jiva Goswami is explaining this. Let me just see if I find exactly what he's saying about this, because I have it written. I believe it's in the document I sent you anyway. So
Prabhu, we didn't see the document.
He says, okay, he says like this. He says like this. Like this. He says that the Parivasa Sutra creates a rule, a restriction. And before this verse, that rule or restriction wasn't established. Okay? Before the verse appears. So all that is being said up until now, you know, we have said Vasudeva para yoga, Vasudeva para maka, Vasudeva para kriya. We have heard, you know, different, we have heard Vadanti Tattvavidas, you know, Bhamati Paramatmati Bhagavan iti sabdyate. You know, we hear about different definitions of the absolute truth. But nothing has been said so specifically, so clear, like now. Krishna is, but all this is all this mentioned here, not all that has been, all this 22, but all that has not been mentioned, they are also, they are all just but plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions. Krishna is the supreme. Now, he is also making the point that, so therefore, Jiva Goswami concludes that the Bhagavatam is only about Krishna. Why? Because Bhagavatam is almost exclusively with the theme of Krishna. He also explains that basically, you know, even if you find any other statement within the Bhagavatam which may lead to a different conclusion, this verse, yeah, I mentioned already, it says like soldiers, like it compares the other text of the Bhagavatam to the army, but this is the emperor verse. So now one may say, but what about the statements in other scriptures? We say that maybe Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu or something. And to establish that he says, well, for that purpose, it's already established in the Tattva Sandarbha that the ultimate Praman, that the highest authority, the topmost authority for us, the followers of Lord Chaitanya, is Srimad-Bhagavatam. So even though we may find statements outside of the Bhagavatam which indicate something else, still he elaborates on the Tattva Sandarbha, another nice book to read if you want to go deeper. How the Bhagavatam is the ultimate authority.
So Prabhu, just to understand this, that this last point up from my side, that when this until that verse comes along, there could be confusion. But after this one point, Canto 1, verse chapter 3 and verse 28, which clearly says that Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam, we just stop it that and we say anything before that is irrelevant, because here we say that Krishna is Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam, and anything beyond that, because we said all these above mentioned incarnation before that are actually a portion or plenary portion, but Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam is basically a full stop, and therefore we just move on from that as the authority. Is that how should we understand this?
Yeah, that's how you understand it. But even prior to this verse, the only verse that maybe cause a bit of kind of doubt is that verse that Krishna is listed amongst the incarnations. But Krishna, but then immediately, and as I mentioned before, he is listed amongst them, but because there is some similarity. But even previous verses already in the Bhagavatam lead towards Krishna. Like I mentioned, Jatkrita Krishna Samprashno Janatma Suprasidati, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. But nothing is being mentioned so clear. We hear about Vasudev, okay? But nothing is being made so clear up until this point. And this is the objective of the Parivasa Sutra, that right at the beginning of the text, you find one text which is very clear, very ambiguous, which introduces the topic, makes it very clear, and then from now on, we don't have to have any doubts. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay?
Cool.
It's some long hands up there, so I don't know who was first, but then maybe Ramananda Krishna Prabhu?
Yes, Guruji. Guruji, I have a little doubt, like in the third line of this verse. Like, Guruji, what is the specific purpose to mention the Indrari here? What is the specific purpose of Indrari, like the enemy of Indra? So why the Indra name is mentioned here, not like Krishna?
The demons, the enemies of Indra are the demons.
Yes. Okay, so it can be good, right? Like I don't know what it is my doubt. like Krishna's enemy, why Indra's enemy only? Like,
say again.
Krishna's enemy, it could be right. Krishna's enemy, why Indra's name only mentioned here?
Indra Ribiya Lukan. Okay, because I mean, okay, let's go to the actual text.
Prabhuji, Indra is the demigod of the heaven. Therefore, he's the one who's disturbed by all the demons because they're trying to fight with them. That's the reason why his name is mentioned.
Yeah, that's what I just said. But I was trying to see it says Indrari Vyakulan Lokan. Yeah, that's exactly what it says. Okay, next question. Charulata. I'm just gonna go. I see the hands there.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Guruji. So there is a question which says, explain the significance of Lord Krishna as Bhagavan Swayam. So when we are saying significance, I'm a little confused. Significance,
Okay, now, forget about getting the answer wrong, okay? No, it doesn't matter if you're gonna get the answer wrong. Just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. What is the significance?
So I think because he's the reservoir, he's the fountainhead of everything. Everything emanates from him. There's
Thank
nothing.
you. Hare Krishna. That's it.
Yeah.
He's the soul. He's the source. He's the original. He's the original form. You have different forms of the Lord. You have different forms of the Lord. But what is the source of all of them? The original form. That's Krishna. That's the special significance. Okay?
Okay. That's
Mataji?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, once there is time, Narada Muni go to Vrindavan, Goloka, and he finds the place is empty and the Lord is not there. And then he is told that the Lord Krishna is playing his pastimes on earth in the material world, and he comes to this earth. But the scripture says Lord Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, even one step. So how to understand this?
Okay, a very nice question. I mean, these are like very, very, deep topics, and I'll answer briefly. You see, the specific nature of the love of the residents of Vrindavan, okay, is a very pure love, unadulterated love. And that actually captures Krishna's attention. Now, the Lord reveals himself proportionally according to the devotion of the devotees. Now, that Braj Bhakti only exists in Vrindavan. He cannot put a step out of Vrindavan. He is captured by the love. As soon as he steps out, it's no longer Vraj Krishna, it's Vasudev Krishna. It's an expansion. Okay? Why? Because of the love. That love is not found anywhere else, and therefore he doesn't step out as such. Now, but when he's always there. For sometimes is in his prakat form and aprakat form. Sometimes he's manifested, and sometimes he's not manifested. But even when apparently he is not there, the gopis are constantly absorbed in thoughts of him. He's in their hearts, he's in their minds. He's there, even though appears not to be. So he never lives in Vrindavan. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Patita Tarana Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The last paragraph, the last on this, what they call the purport, Prabhu.
Yeah.
I've got two questions here. The number one is, Prabhupada is telling that godly living beings who are all resident of planets of spiritual sky, the eternal associate of God in different place called Haridham and Mahishdham. So is Mahishdham or Kailash, is it within that jurisdiction of spiritual world?
Yeah. Yeah, he is out. You could say he's outside the material world.
Oh, that means those who go there never come back.
Yeah. because you don't come back from the material to the spiritual world. Yeah.
All right. And the second question is, Prabhu, that it says also, Prabhupada is telling, the perfected living being after developing 78% of attributes in fullness only can go into Krishna Loka. So, like sometimes we hear that even by practicing bhakti, we can simply go back to Godhead in this very birth itself. So, how is that, Prabhu? How we can understand that?
So, is the question that how on earth are we going to develop 78% before we go back in this lifetime? Is that the question?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Well, in the just to put into the frame of what we have studied so far, like in the first verse of the Bhagavatam, we hear like Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Yamadya Sajatam Vayat Itaratas Charteswa Vignatswarat Tene Brahma Ridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yatsuraya Teyo Vari Midan Yata Vinimayo Yata Trishargo Misha Damna Swada Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satam Satyam Param Di Mahi. Is that he is residing in his eternal abode, which is forever free from the inevitableness of the material world. So you cannot go to the material world, to the spiritual world, with without any type of the word is any type of material consciousness, any imperfection. You got to leave them behind. They are not allowed there. They're not enter. So when the living entity becomes purified, when the living entity becomes cleansed of all contamination, by default is 78%. By default. Like we were discussing yesterday, how when the false ego is dissolved, it's not that you have to acquire these qualities. The qualities are already there. You're just uncovering them. So when the soul becomes free from the covering of all the material covenants, including the false ego, the true qualities of the soul manifest. And you go back home back to God. So sometimes it may be the case, maybe that's the angle that you're taking, that, well, how does it take place? That, because sometimes we may see that the body, before he dies, he's not reached that stage. Right? Is that the context that you were asking, your question?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I asked this question one time to His Holiness Shivaran Swami. I was in Vrindavan, and I asked him this thing, and he said, well, you cannot go back home back to Godhead unless you fully realize who you are. That was his answer. I had this question for a long time because, we see the devotees who are living this world, and how do everybody? He went back home back to Godhead, but how do we know? So I was thinking, how do we know? But he said like this. He said, but the point is that the Lord may just remove all those last vestiges of impurity right at the end. There is a famous pastime with one of Prabhupada's disciples that his name was Sudama Swami. And one time Prabhupada was, with a group of sannyasis and leaders, and he wanted to send someone to Japan to preach, to open up the preaching. And he said, so who's going to go to Japan? And no one was raising their hands. Everybody was quiet. And then Prabhupada said, okay, whoever goes to Japan, I will personally take him back home, back to Godhead. And then this Swami, he raised his hand. And for what I heard, he wasn't like particularly like a, like a very charismatic preacher or speaker, but anyway, he went and he opened up the preaching in Japan to this day. There are still devotees he made. But somehow when Prabhupada left this world, this devotee went into heavy Maya, big Maya, and he actually got AIDS. And he was he was not in contact with the devotees, nothing. But then around the time of Prabhupada's centennial, Bhaktisiddhanta Swami was like looking for different devotees. Anyway, it turns out that the lady who was with this devotee, no longer a Swami, obviously, called the temple and he said, I got a story to tell you. He says, you know, my partner, you know, such and such, was this ex-Swami, Sudama Swami. He said he contracted AIDS and he was on his deathbed. And all of a sudden, he was lying down, and all of a sudden he just sat up, his face lit up, and he said, Prabhupada, you've come, and dropped dead. So the mercy of the spiritual master is there, you know. The impossible can become possible. So the devotee, we have this hope against hope. How are we going to make it? It's like you said, the more we make progress, it's like the harder, the further it seems to be, the goal seems to be further and further, the more we try for it. But the Lord is unlimitedly merciful. He can, from one kick, he can remove all the coverings, you know. So anyway, that's my answer. Is that okay?
Oh, very nice, Prabhu. But all these can be achieved in any part of the world and not necessary to be in Vrindavan.
Apart from Malaysia. In Malaysia is restrictions there. You gotta come to the Holy Dam. What do you mean by restrictions? What do you mean by restrictions? I was just curious about what you meant by that.
Yeah.
Anywhere. That's the point. The devotional service is not hindered by material circumstances. Anywhere. We should have that conviction. But of course, we want to be in the association of the devotees. Okay, I still have one more point to make for this class. So let's attend to because it's a nice verse coming up and I really want to cover that. Rupa Goswami Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This about the avatar, the incarnations, that Krishna is also, where Krishna is mentioned in the groups of avatara. So the Sanskrit word avatar itself is avataran, to come from the spiritual, come from above. So Krishna comes from his Goloka Vrindavan, and other incarnations just like Rama, Nrsimha, they have also their spiritual abode in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. So that may be one point, that Krishna also comes from Goloka Vrindavan. So he is mentioned among the incarnations.
What's the question?
No, Janmashtami Krishna Prabhu, that time he was discussing where Krishna also mentioned in the groups of the 22 incarnations, where Krishna also mentioned as incarnation.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that there is some similarities. There is some similarities. They all come, they all perform pastimes, they all kill demons, you know. So there's those similarities. But Krishna is not avatara. Krishna is avatari. That's the difference.
That is what I am insisting. The Sanskrit word avatara means coming down, like this. Avatar, as we understand that, okay, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is there, and other are incarnation. They are coming out from him. But the another meaning of avatar is that they are there in their spiritual world, just like Krishna is the Supreme
Okay, I
Personality.
understood. So this is the point. The point, they are actually, it's not, these forms are eternal. All these incarnations, they are also eternal. Okay, it's not that they are just manifesting now from Krishna. No, but the point is that
that is what the impersonalist says, that okay, the Supreme is the like impersonal, and then one form is manifested, just like different avatars, they are manifested. But as per our Vaishnava, just like Bhagavatam we are reading, we understand that Krishna and all other incarnations are eternally existing there, and they come from their abode.
That's the correct understanding. They are all eternal, but they are manifesting in the material world through the Purusha avatars.
Yeah,
and the Lord himself is expanding himself as the Purusha, through whom the different incarnations are coming. Okay, let's clear. I think, is that it? Is any other questions? I don't see any more hands up. Everybody's.
Yes, I have one small question.
Ramananda, we have given you a lot of questions. I'm gonna complete what I need to complete, And then if there is time, I'll answer you, or we stay together, okay? Because otherwise, I'm not going to cover what is left. Okay? Is that okay with you? Can you write it down and we'll do it at the end?
Yes, Prabhuji.
I just want to make sure that we complete what we need to complete. Okay. So let's go back to the presentation. Okay, I think when you read also the article I gave you, it will kind of help you to consolidate what we have discussed. Okay, so now from verses 30 to 39, which is what is remaining for this unit, we're going to see how progressing how to perceive the Lord in matter, different perceptions of the Lord, how, you know, about from the Virat Rupa to the impersonal conception to the localized aspect and to Bhagavan. This is what is described in these verses that are remaining. So verses 31 and 30 and 31 is the start, is seeing spirit in matter. Okay, this is going to be explained in great detail when you come to the second canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, extensively. So we don't need to go into it right now because you're gonna explore it later. Okay, we're just touching upon it. So now the conception of the Lord known as the Vishva Rupa or the Virat Rupa is particularly not mentioned along with the various incarnations of the Lord, because all the incarnations of the Lord mentioned above are transcendental and there is not a tinge of materialism in their bodies. Okay? The present forms of the conditioned souls are also not factual. The conclusion is that the material conception of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary. Both the Lord and the living beings are living spirits and have original spiritual bodies. Okay? Now, 32 to 34 is Brahman realization, seeing all as spirit. Okay, let's read the verses also. Because we're jumping the verses. I'm going to read this 30 onwards. Just give me a second while I get it. Oops. Yeah. So 31, clouds and dust are carried by the air, but less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit self. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form without form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond this subtlety. Otherwise, he could not have repeated births. Text 33. Whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time, he sees himself as well as the Lord. (33) If the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self-realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory. So this verse in particular is actually one of my favorite purports in the whole of Prabhupada's books. And I want to go into it a little bit. I put something on the slide, but I'm going to read more actually, because otherwise it won't, just to make it very clear. Okay, so please, now if you are a little distracted by anything, I beg you, please just like switch off to the wall and really carefully listen to this purport, because it really is very, very profound, and it's very, very important for us, what is being said in this purport. Okay, but you need to listen to it carefully. I'm going to ask you a few questions about it in a minute. Okay. Okay, so purport. Because the Lord is the absolute transcendence, all of his forms, names, pastimes, attributes, associates, and energies are identical with him. His transcendental energy acts according to his omnipotency. The same energy acts as his external, internal, and marginal energies. And by his omnipotency, he can perform anything and everything through the agency of any of the above energies. He can turn the external energy into internal by his will. Therefore, okay, now focus even more. Therefore, by his grace, the external energy, which is employed in illusioning those living beings who want to have it, subsides by the will of the Lord in terms of repentance and penance for the conditioned soul. And the very same energy that acts to help the purified living being make progress on the path of self-realization. The example of electrical energy is very appropriate in this connection. The expert electrician can utilize the electrical energy for both heating and cooling by adjustment only. Similarly, the external energy, which now bewilders the living being into continuation of birth and death, is turned into internal potency by the will of the Lord to lead the living being to eternal life. When a living being is thus graced by the Lord, he is placed in his proper constitutional position to enjoy eternal spiritual life. Okay? So, what is being explained here is that basically whatever is happening in our lives is mercy of the Lord, basically. And it's up to us to take it as mercy of the Lord, or we can see it as just disconnected from the Lord. But the idea is that the environment is helping me in my Krishna consciousness if I see it as Krishna's mercy. And the example is given, the expert electrician, that the same energy that is coming to him, he can use it for heating or for cooling. So the devotee, he becomes expert in seeing how his circumstances are actually helping me to surrender to the Lord. So some examples of these are, for example, when in the Bhagavad Gita, when the soldiers blew their conches, you know, for Duryodhana, he was frightened. But you know, on Krishna's side, they were joyful. The same energy was causing one person to become frightened and the other person to become joyful. In the case of Vidura, when Vidura was insulted also by Duryodhana, and you know, Duryodhana was like basically Dhritarashtra was asking for Vidura's advice, and Vidura was very bold, and he said, you know, you are maintaining the sound of your religion. You should immediately return their share to the Pandavas, you know. And Duryodhana was there, and he was furious. And he immediately said to Vidura, you're the kept son of a mistress. Throw him out of his, you know, he's betraying those who are feeding him. Throw him out of the palace and leave him only with his breath. And then Vidura, at that point, he could have retaliated. He could have fought back. Who is this? You know, it was, you know, his nephew, you know, who is this, you know, child, you know, this immature person? Why we listen to him? He didn't react, he didn't respond. He just put his bow and arrow outside of the door, and he went on pilgrimage for 38 years. He never saw Krishna once more. He took that as an opportunity to surrender to Krishna. He was, there was so many politics in the palace. He was being affected by that, by living there with the Kauravas. So he just, okay, I'm out, So the same situation, helping in his Krishna consciousness, but it was a ruination of Duryodhana. Huh? So are you understanding what is being explained in this purport? Because it's very, very important. This is like this is our life, we are confronted constantly with different tests and different challenges, and we have to learn to see Krishna's hand and see how that situation is going to uplift me, because we get upset with the agent, the messenger, but actually this is being delivered to us by Krishna. Like I remember one time I was in Spain. I was in the farm, and then the postman came, and then he said he was asking for someone. I said, well, I don't know where he is. He said, well, I have a letter for him. I need a signature. And then and he said to me, can you sign it? I said, well, what is it? And I said, it's a fine. And I said, no, I'm not signing it, but say that I sign it, okay? And then this devotee came at that point, but say I sign it, and then I go and I give the fine to this devotee. And he just gets so upset with me, punches me. You giving me this, why, bah, bah, bah. So whose fault is it that I'm giving him the fine? He did something, I'm just giving him the fine, but it wasn't me who is punishing. So when things happen to us in life, is not, the person is just an agent of our karma. Prabhupada said, don't become upset with the agent of your karma. So it's so important that we see this, because unless we take responsibility, we're not going to be able to make substantial progress in Krishna consciousness. We're going to become bitter and resentful and angry at devotees. But actually, what is trying to teach me Krishna in this situation? And see that actually, a lot of the time, our response is not so much determined by what happens, but is determined by our own consciousness. Like they say, when if someone triggers you, okay, you feel triggered sometimes by people. Someone triggers you, right? So the trigger is okay, that's them, right? But ammunition is in you. You are accountable for the ammunition, for how you respond. That's your share. You cannot blame that person. The same person does the same thing to other person, he responds differently. So we need to look for this. And so I think it's just very, very nice point, that how the expert electrician, he tends the one situation he's going to bring me down, how I turn it into a springboard in my Krishna consciousness. And you find a lot of the devotees who have been practicing for many years, that they all been put through sometimes severe tests. I mean, not even devotees, even non-devotees. You hear people talking about their lives, and always they go through these challenges, and sometimes those challenges, they become like the source of their success, because they learn so much, they grow so much. But it's particularly applicable in terms of Krishna consciousness, because we understand that Krishna is the supreme controller and the supreme well-wisher. So what, so therefore, and I'll read again. It says that therefore, by his grace, the external energy which is employed in illusioning those living beings who want to have it, subsides by the will of the Lord in terms of repentance and penance of the conditioned soul. So what does it mean, repentance and penance? What do you think? Repentance and penance, what does it mean? Anyone?
Well, we are repenting for something wrong that we have done.
Yeah.
And we just do not want to repeat it at all. Instead, we are repenting in a way that, why did we do what we did?
We're not bitter about the whole thing, we're not like, this idiot guy, he's always giving me so much trouble or whatever, We actually, and then we can actually come to a platform of peace. When you take responsibility, it's like, well, actually, according to the philosophy, this is coming to me because of my karma. And according to the philosophy, if Krishna thinks I'm a devotee of some kind, he's just giving me a little token. He's not giving me even the full thing, So I'm grateful. And I'm also grateful to Krishna, and I'm grateful to this person, because this person is showing me something in my heart that I may not have been able to see without his provocation. Because we don't see things in our heart when when things are going kind of okay. Often we don't see that. Sometimes it can, okay, in the form of temptation, we can also see our impurity in our hearts. But when there's some challenge, some provocation, we also see where we're at, really. It's not that, we're chanting our rounds in the morning and, we're going Mangalarti and we're doing all these things and we're inspired. That definitely is a good sign, but it's not the only sign. Our Krishna consciousness is also tested when, how we respond, how we deal to other people, how we respond to problems. The greatness of a person is demonstrated by his ability to tolerate provoking situations. So I take, yeah.
Sorry, Babu, I'll carry on now.
Okay.
It's time up. I've literally got 2 hours to sleep.
Thank you very much, Yamastami Krishna Prabhu. All glories to your tapasya to stay up.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, just to, we're going to be only a few more minutes anyway. So the point is that we can use every situation to advance in Krishna consciousness. That's the key point. In terms of repentance and penance. And penance means that I will endure whatever is coming, I will endure it for you, Krishna. You're just giving me a little thing. Easier said than done. I'm preaching to myself also here. It's just like, but this is the essence of life. Every one of us, this we're discussing is applicable. I'm sure every one of us is facing a situation right now, right? That is like, burning or creating some tension. That how can we use this also in Krishna service? Taking responsibility, learning from that experience, healing that through chanting, through service, Okay, Chatura Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This sentence is very good. Does it mean that the Mahamaya already turned to Yoga Maya?
It's the one energy. It's just the same energy. That's the point. It's the same energy. And according to how we perceive it, it's become spiritual or material. We can spiritualize the material energy by how we use it. So if I use it in Krishna service, it becomes spiritual. So as I said, in the case of Vidura, the same situation, which may have been the cause of his material kind of, ruination, or he just took, okay, this is Krishna's mercy. I'll go on pilgrimage. I'll purify myself through going through different holy places, And eventually, at the end of when Krishna was leaving this world, we're always thinking about that. We have to think of Krishna when we leave this world. Now, who was Krishna thinking of when he was leaving this world? That's important to know, right? Is the general rule is that we have to think of Krishna when we go. But who is Krishna thinking of when he's leaving this world? He was thinking of Vidura. Okay, Samuel.
Prabhu?
Yeah.
Yesterday we talked about this process of the Bhakti, 9 or 10, I forgot. So at which process? You mean this Mahamaya turn into Yogamaya?
Say again. The last sentence I didn't understand. What?
At which stage this Mahamaya turns into Yogamaya? Yesterday we learned from Shraddha and then to Prema this process.
I'm not quite understanding the question. I'm sorry, but the principle is in any case that yes, like Prabhupada explains that the devotee is expert. An expert means that one is expert in getting out of the material world. Whatever stage you are in, you just use that situation for serving Krishna. Try to see how the situation is helping me in my Krishna consciousness. We're going to see these points much later on. Don't worry about it. This is going to be a theme, okay? And I'm out of time now, 4 minutes. So Samuel,
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Samuel, a quick one.
Yes, Prabhu, I just wanted to say, like, it's very nice how you're making us appreciate this purport, but it just made me think of, when Krishna ends his teachings to Uddhava, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says there's one verse which is the essence of the Bhagavatam, is that Krishna, he says that process of bhakti says is the intelligence of the intelligent, because you can use the temporary and unreal to achieve the eternal reality. That really made me think of this purport and everything you were expressing, and now it's just basically a change of consciousness.
This is nice when we actually begin to kind of dive deep into the Bhagavatam. It's like an ocean, and there are jewels at the bottom of the ocean, and you find that those jewels are, found in the same type of jewel you find in different places. Like, there's so many verses in the Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto which are connected with what we did. In fact, to be honest with you, for yesterday's class, I wasn't reading 2nd chapter of Bhagavatam. I was reading the 11th, I was reading Uddhava Gita. For yesterday's class, we were discussing about Bhakti progress. I was, going through those verses because it's all connected, right? So it's just nice. And then we begin to kind of catch that message. So thank you for the appreciation. Okay, so we're gonna end here. I thank you very much for your, of course, we left a few verses, but it's just basically okay. So 35 to 36 is Paramatma realization. 37 to 39 is Bhagavan realization. And then from verse 40 onwards, we're gonna hear about Bhagavatam, who comes as the literary incarnation of God. And that's unit 2, which I will be meeting you again in 2 weeks. So I wish you all the best with your closed book test and with your open book assessment. And it's been a real pleasure for me to be with you. Thank you. Vancha kalpatarubhischa kripa sindhuvyacha
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
So the class was so nice, Prabhuji. 6 class. First unit was so nice you have taken, and we look forward for the second unit. So let us tell Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Ram, Hare
Prabhuji.
Ram,
Ram, Hare Hare.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So now the next unit that comes is even better than this one in one sense. Second unit is very beautiful. Okay. Second unit. So please read it. It's really ecstatic. The second, 4th chapter, 5th chapter, 6th chapter, and beginning of 7th chapter. Really nice section. So I look forward for that. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, shall we study the rest verses on next Sunday, the next Saturday?
For the next Saturday, your test goes until verse 39. Okay? Nothing else. Chapter 3, verse 39. Okay?